I can't even remember, honestly. My wife was asking me this the other day, and I think after Egypt at some point here, when the format got released, and I had heard that they were going to do 2 days and 2 days, and I was kind of like, well, if they do individual first, I'll do both, and if they do team first, I might not do the teams, because I think that there's still a lot of prize money on the line for individual, and you don't want to go in with a little bit of a handicap if you can help it. So I think that the way they've set it up is great, because you can get a lot of top individuals there to compete, and then once you're there, you might as well make little coalitions and make cool teams, or if you're already there and you don't want to do one or the other, you've got 2 days that you can spend servicing sponsorships, hanging out with the crowd and fans and all that kind of stuff. So I think the format that they did is great. And when it came up, Brent was like, this is the first time he's doing individual, and he was coming down. So I mentioned that if they did team second, I would probably do team. And we just got talking. He's like, yeah, we could do a team. And we were trying to get a couple people and figure out who to go with. And a couple names got floated, and we were kind of trying to find guys from our era, like the guys that we competed with for years, people like BKG or guys like that, like, yep. We've all been in that sort of fight for many years now. And a lot of guys, just people get snapped up quick, right? Like teams form fast. And it's amazing to me seeing some of the groups, because some of them I'm like, I didn't even know these guys knew each other. Like how these teams are hilarious. I've never seen you talk to each other. This is awesome. And some people, it's like sponsorship teams and whatever, but we just were talking, and I was talking to Jeff about something else, and I thought, it's a good Canadian team, like all of our top Canadians. And I was already talking with Brent, and I'm like, Jeff is terrific, and he's also like, to be honest, it makes my job a little bit easier. I don't have to worry about moving heavy weights quite as much. I'm happy to have Jeff Adler out there do some of the job for me, but and like Brent can do, Brent's great on the machines. He's great swimming. He's great with a bunch of stuff. So we have some pretty good individual strengths that I'm looking forward to harnessing, because I resent them most of the time when we're competing as individuals. And so that's kind of what's fun about it. But I think I'm going to be kind of like this bridge between Brent and Jeff, is sort of how I see it going on, which has me a little nervous. I feel like I'm going to be like in the middle of the worm, trying to balance that whole thing between them, and being like the utility guy who's just like, oh, I'm fine at whatever. I'll jump in to soak up whatever I need to. But we just kind of thought it'd be fun to make a team of Canucks and see if we can go. I don't know. See if we can win both the teams and the individuals for Canada.
I like the glue guy role for you. I was going to ask what your role was after Brent posted that Always Sunny meme about being
wild card, baby. Wild card.
Oh.
Which that was a great post, by the way. I gotta give Brent credit on that one. That was terrific. He's a big Sunny fan, and I just like, your phone pings and you look at it, and I forget where I was, but I was laughed so hard. I watched it like 4 times through. Like, this is genius.
One of the major storylines on the individual side is you're going for 4 straight. I mean, we talked last year. I think you were maybe going to crown yourself Mr. 305, Mr. Miami, give yourself a fun nickname, something like that. What is it about this event that just keeps you coming back? And what title can we give you if you make it 4 straight and beat out Noah for the most consecutive Waza title?
Yeah, I don't know. That's right. This is for standalone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, well, Noah's he's won the team. He's podium there. Even when I was winning, he was still podiuming. He's still, Miami's his turf for sure. But I don't know. I think that initially when I first went to compete there, it was like, well, I think the first year I went, it was sanctioned event. Mm-hmm. And it just happened to be the second sanctioned event of the year. Matt went to Dubai, and then I went to Wodapalooza, and I got my game spot. And that timing when I was in school wasn't that bad, like that kind of winter timing. It was like you get away from the winter, and I wasn't in any kind of exam period or anything. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty good. I would say the last round was a little bit harder, just because the holiday training is kind of not great.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one thing that sometimes it's a bit tough if you're traveling or doing things in the holidays. It gets a little bit like, you're sort of I have this delayed gratification mode where I'm like delaying my holiday an extra few weeks so that I can just do this, check this box first, and then I'm good. Then I'm on holiday, right? Start
Mhm.
the year off right. But it's a good checkpoint. Like right before the Open, it kind of gives me a chance to do a major off-season competition again, and then you can kind of, for me, I can wind down a little bit through the Open, and then you get to quarterfinals and you start to build up a little bit again. So it's sort of like this mini hump in the year where you make a mini peak, and then you can kind of ride it down a bit, and then do another one for semis, and then have a big peak for games. So it's good. And I like to compete. I think it hasn't ever bothered me to do like Rogue, Wodapalooza, a semifinal in the games. That kind of 4 big competitions in a year is doable for me. I think there was a time I tried to do more than that, and it was difficult on me, but that it seems to be pretty manageable, and still is. So I just like it. It's a good reason for us to get away from winter, get down to Miami and do something different. And it is just like it's fun. It's one of the biggest off-season events that exists, right? So it's fun to be kind of part of that energy. And I think to have just name association with Wodapalooza is pretty cool. To
Yep.
be like associated as a guy that goes there and has a lot of success, it's fun. And I mean, a lot of people are catching on. Like I said, I saw the roster today, and it looks like it's not going to be an easy ride.
No.
So we'll see how things go this year.
We also have not spoken to you since the new season format was unveiled, and you go into now 2023 knowing what the season is going to look like, knowing where you might be competing should you make it to semifinals, which I'm assuming you will. What's it like, first, here's yet another kind of format or an adjustment of a current format, but also like knowing that format before you even start.
I like that. I can't believe it's taken us that long to do that.
Mhm.
But that's something that even like with the PFAA, and I think a lot of athletes have been trying to voice that for a long time. Um, personally, I'm very connected to that because I also am working and I'm doing some other things. And like my wife has a pretty serious work schedule, and it's sometimes difficult for us to coordinate when things happen so last minute. And I feel like in a lot of ways, the organization has hid shortcomings behind the unknown and unknowable veil for a long time that just are not, they don't belong there, and that's not necessary. So something like when do I have to compete? Should I have to book days off from my job? That seems like a very reasonable ask. Like if I've got to book flights and I've got to try to like travel and I have an infant and I might have to work out childcare, that seems like a very reasonable ask. So I think that it's awesome to see that this year they've said like, hey, they made the promise earlier months ago, and they said, hey, beginning of the new year or by like end of December, we are going to release dates, locations, all this information. And then they did it. And honestly, it's like, it's kind of like the first time I've seen that, which is awesome. Like that's really, really good. And so I'm pumped that they've done that because it's exciting. The new format is very similar, right? And I don't think there's some pieces of it that we won't know because of the power ranking structure, and it's kind of unclear how we're going to apply that. Or, I'll be honest, I haven't really read the fine print of it yet. So, knowing when that's going to be determined, I know we're going to know, I think between quarterfinals and semifinals, how the allocation is going to go. But it's good to have a little bit of clarity as far as timing and things. I think that just helps people execute their lives. And there are some people who are just, this is all they're doing. It's full time. And so it doesn't really matter. They can pivot on a dime if they need to. But there's a lot of people still competing at a high level, especially at the semifinals level, who have a lot going on and are working pretty normal jobs, living pretty normal lives. And so I think it's a really great thing to help facilitate that. And it sort of changes the barrier of entry, and it makes it less exclusive. So I think that's a huge positive. And I mean, I'm excited. I was joking with some people recently that I have been living out west now for 3 years again. And I grew up out west. I lived out east for like 7 years, 6, 7 years, and I've never competed out west.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
In my entire CrossFit career, I've never competed in the West. So it's just like, it's funny. It's like this, it feels like about time. Like took me my whole career, right? Like finally I'm like, oh man, I'm actually a North America West athlete. I'm going to compete on the West Coast. Like every time, even last year for semis, there was all this hoopla around, people getting placed in certain semis and how difficult it would be to travel. And like I had to fly like 5,000 miles
Yeah.
to compete. Like,
Mhm.
and I was still in Canada, but like I had to go all the way from the tippy tip of the West Coast to like all the way east in order to go to my own semifinal. So like it was basically the farthest semifinal away from my home, and that's where I went. And you just do it and you go. But I've been competing east forever, and events like Wodapalooza were a whole lot easier when I lived in Toronto, when I lived on the east of Canada. But now it's like, it takes me 3 flights to get to Miami. And so it's going to be really nice to just, I think we were looking at it when the locations got announced, and we were in like Pasadena or something like that.
Mhm.
And I think it's like a 5-hour, like all in travel day to get there. And that is unheard of from the island. Like I haven't done that for a competition in like 3 or 4 years. So I'm psyched. I think it's sweet. And I mean, on the plus side of that too, we have, like we talked about Rogue and having a shot to win it. And obviously Justin won that, and he was great. But I get to compete against Justin at semis now, which is super fun. And
Mhm.
I know back, in the previous era, I really relished the opportunity to compete against Matt at a checkpoint earlier in the season. And those kind of things are super fun. And so I'm really excited for just the way that this is shaken out just for me personally, even that I get some cool, I get to compete closer to home. I get to compete against some top athletes, and I'm curious to see how the power ranking thing shakes out, but I think it'll be positive.
Thanks so much for watching our video. Be sure to comment below, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more videos just like this one. Follow us on Instagram at Talking Elite Fitness. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our audio episodes when they drop on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.